All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I'm going to be reviewing The Honourable Schoolboy by John Le Carre. This is one of the middle books in his George Smiley international spy thriller series. Last week I read and reviewed Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, which was the book that came before this book in the series. I also reviewed the TV mini-series of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. I also reviewed the movie Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, as well as the novel. Honourable Schoolboy is the story that follows right after Tinker Tailor. Came out in 1977. And let's talk about the cover first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. It's a good cover. It matches. If you saw my, I'll just show you. Well, I can't show you all the covers, but I'll show you my John Le Carre book collection, because he is one of my favorite writers. And I have all of his books, and they are all right there. And about 7 or 8 of them in the collection of about 25 are part of the George Smiley series. Cover's cool. It's a nice piece of art, very Asian oriented, because this book is set exclusively in Hong Kong and China. Like I said, it came out in 1977. In the foreword to this book, John Le Carre explains, how Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy was such a massive hit. He'd had a big blockbuster book come out in the 60s, which was The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, which got his career started. And then he had a series of about 5 or 6 books that did okay. But then Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy came out and launched him into the stratosphere. So this was the sequel to that. And he talks about how this is the first book that he ever wrote. John Le Carre was in the British Secret Service himself. That's why a lot of these books have a lot of realistic and spycraft in them. And he really goes into the realism of spy work, not the fantasy land of spy work that you get out of a James Bond or a Jason Bourne movie. This is real spycraft, which includes a lot of just sitting around and following people and pushing papers and answering phone calls and, tracking people. It's not like it's not like all hot women and fancy cars and explosions and narrow escapes in a John Le Carre book. And he explains kind of why he's going through. In the foreword to this, he explains a lot about why he writes the way he writes and why he does spy novels. And this is the first spy novel that he actually went on location to write. And he went to China, and he went to Asia, and parts of Asia that were embroiled in a war at the time. And he talks about how some of the scenes from this book were things that he actually went through when he was in China. And some of them were harrowing. I mean, he almost lost his life going into areas he should not have went into. But he used those experiences to take the main character of this book, into those same situations. I thought that was kind of cool, something I didn't know. I am wearing my Hong Kong shirt because I have been to Hong Kong. So when I read books about Hong Kong, I know the landscape and I know what it's like. And he also talks about, as he was doing research in Hong Kong, he got a lot of help from the Hong Kong Police Department. Now, this was in the 70s, which might be different than now. I'm telling you, when I was in Hong Kong, there were police everywhere. The city was clean. There's no crime. We were told that there's no crime. This is what I was told by a cab driver. I'm like, why is this city so clean? Why are there announcements every day? And this, what I'm talking about now, goes into some of the stuff that is in the book. Why are there announcements every day over the intercom that goes through the train station and all over the city that there's a fine for littering? And they do the announcement. At least when I was there in 2015, this announcement would come on about every hour on the hour I remember, and it would come off in Chinese and then English, because at the time I was there, it was still, I think it was, no, there was still capitalist. That's like more communist. But when did the British give Hong Kong back to the Chinese? I think it was a few years ago. Anyway, that's beside the point. There were these announcements that would ring out through the city. Remember, citizens, it is illegal to chew gum. It is illegal to litter. There's a $10,000 fine. Finally asked one of the cab drivers that spoke English, what's up with these announcements? And he's like, well, Hong Kong is the safest city in the world. Doesn't matter what time of day or night or how sketchy the neighborhood looks, you're going to be safe. And I'm, well, how is that possible? He's like, well, the police don't really arrest anybody here. They just disappear people. So if you're suspected of doing something you ain't supposed to be doing, you're going to be tied to a cinder block and floating at the bottom of Hong Kong Bay. I mean, I was like, okay, I guess that solves that problem. And then I went up to a cop when I was there, the Chinese policeman, and because I work in law enforcement, I thought in America, I thought it would be cool to get a selfie with some Asian Hong Kong police officers. And I said, Kate, can I get a selfie with you? And oh my Lord, I thought I was, just for asking the question, I thought I was on my way to cinder block, sinking to the bottom. I thought I was gonna, they were just, not only were they like, no, but they were like, no, and get the, what's right now? And I was just like, no problem. I ain't got no problem. I got no problem. But anyway, he mentions a lot about this. But this is the thing about this part of the world and the dynamic between communism and capitalism that's going on in Hong Kong, that's always gone on in Hong Kong since it was a British colony right in the middle of Soviet China. And not Soviet, or communist China. You know what I'm saying? I can relate to a lot of things that were happening in this book. Let's get to the book. Enough of my personal stories. We're 10 minutes into this and I haven't even talked about the book. It's been all about me. All about me. Okay, so this opens up with the characters are still reeling from the events from the novel Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, in which there is a mole in the British Secret Service that they sussed that out. The mole was working for Carla, the assassin spy from Moscow. This has shaken up the circus. The circus is the code name for the British Secret Service. They call it the circus. It's shaken up everything in there. And now George Smiley, our main character, he embarks on a campaign to uncover what there's another thing that Moscow even wants to keep more secret than the mole. And but the trail that he is following, that George Smiley is following, has kind of gone cold in Hong Kong. And it involves a lot of different things I'm not going to really get into, but he dispatches this fellow named Westerby to shake up things in Hong Kong and to shake up this investigation, to get things rolling, because Westerby can be a little bit of a rogue. His code name is the Honourable Schoolboy. Of course, this is why we get this. Now, Westerby enters Hong Kong as a kind of, as his cover is as a journalist, but he's a philanthropist, a very ladies' man-esque journalist. That is his cover, which has some interesting side quests to it. And then Westerby, through Westerby's eyes, we see what life as a spy is really like. And it's very lonely. I mean, it's almost like this book almost plays out like a Shakespearean tragedy, sad ending type of what is really in it for a spy to do spycraft when he's just playing a part, when he's just playing a role, and he's trying not to get found out, and he's in a country that and he goes to parts of the country that are very dangerous, and it takes on like a lot of post World War II communist versus capitalist versus democracy things that go on in Vietnam and Laos and Hong Kong and Korea and all that, and it all kind of wraps into a very complex web of tangled plot pieces that are just, that only John Le Carre can put together. And it just, you kind of feel like, God, why would anybody want to work for the British Secret Service if this is what your life is like? You know, if you've just got to pretend to be someone else your whole life, and in the end, all that does is make you lonely. That's kind of the theme of this book, and I actually really enjoyed it. It's a lot thicker. It's probably the thickest book that Le Carre ever wrote. There's a lot going on in this. I liked it, but I love John Le Carre. Not a lot of explosions, not a lot of quick getaways, not a lot of swinging over cliffs and jumping out of buildings. There's no Fast and the Furious cars. It's just a really interesting, slow burn, slow building, slow plot moving spy thriller that you just got to pay attention to everything that the characters are saying to each other to catch the clues and the red herrings and the misdirections. It's absolutely fabulous, but that's what John Le Carre is known for. And his fabulous writing. He's got some great, poignant phrases that I just, some of them I just think about to this day, of just some of the things that he says in this book, and how, they just, you know what I'm talking about. When you read a sentence in a book and it just says something to you. Anyway, that's a lot of this. I did not like this as much as Tinker Tailor, or even the one that comes after, Smiley's People. But it's still super dope. I mean, I give this a 9 out of 10. Enthusiastically, 9 out of 10.